You ever get that feeling where you just got to know something? Like something pops into your head and it just won't go away until you figure it out?
Oh, yeah, totally. Or like when you just dive headfirst into some new topic, Just can't get enough of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're talking about those feelings today. Specifically, we're going to try to untangle interest and curiosity.
Yeah, because they seem pretty similar at first.
For sure. And for our listeners, who are all about getting to the bottom of things quickly and efficiently,
Yeah,
understanding this difference can be really huge.
totally agree. And luckily, we have this awesome research paper to help us out here. Interest development and its relation to curiosity. Needed neuroscientific research by Heedy and Renninger.
Perfect.
It's a deep dive, literally, into why these two things that we kind of use interchangeably sometimes are actually very different and how that affects the way we learn and engage with the world.
Our mission today is to break it all down, figure out what makes interest tick, what drives curiosity, how they connect, and why you should even care about the difference.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to learn effectively and stay engaged.
And it's easy to see why these two get mixed up.
Yeah.
The paper actually points out they share a lot of fundamental qualities. They're both motivational, they energize us, they help us process information.
Absolutely. And they're both intrinsically rewarding.
Right.
You don't need some external prize or anything to feel that pull.
Right. And here's the thing. Neuroscientifically, seeking information, whether it comes from a quick curiosity spark or like a deeper interest,
Right.
it activates the reward centers in our brains.
It feels good to learn.
It does. And we know, thanks to Panksepp back in '98, he kind of grouped them under this seeking system, right?
Yeah.
And all the brain research since then has shown that seeking information releases dopamine, which is that feel-good chemical.
I love dopamine.
Me too. But so they both feel good. They both motivate us to find things out, to seek knowledge. So what's the difference?
Right. Why bother splitting hairs here?
So this is a big point the paper makes. While neuroscientists often look at that seeking aspect, that quick, I need to know, that's usually associated with curiosity, right?
Yeah.
But psychologists, they've looked at both interest and curiosity as ways to support learning.
Right.
But the problem is, if we don't get the distinction, our efforts to learn better can kind of fall flat.
Right. They're not as effective.
Exactly. Like you might spark curiosity in a classroom, but that doesn't mean someone's going to be engaged in the long term the way they would if they were truly interested.
Right. So there are different ways people have looked at this relationship. And some researchers, like Sylvia and his colleagues, they basically say there's the same thing, like two sides of the same coin.
Okay, so that's one big camp.
Yeah.
Sylvia's argument is that if you want to understand how curiosity works across psychology as a whole, it's better to think of them as one.
Okay.
He even suggests that maybe it's just the words we use that make us think there's a difference. When you look at the biology, he doesn't really see strong evidence for separate systems.
Yeah.
Schmidt and Rotkins, they kind of looked at this too.
Yeah.
They were wondering if that quick, ooh, that's interesting, that situational interest,
Right.
and that deeper kind of intellectual curiosity, are they coming from the same place? And they kind of think so, yeah.
Interesting. But then you've got other researchers, like Izard,
Yeah.
who take the opposite approach. He thinks interest is this broader emotional state, and curiosity is just a part of that.
Right, like a subset.
Yeah.
So Izard would say that feeling of, ooh, I want to know more, is part of that broader feeling of engagement you have when you're interested in something.
Makes sense.
And then there's a lot of research where scientists focus intensely on one or the other, but not really both together.
Right.
Like early work on interest, yours actually pointed to those why questions, the ones learners come up with on their own,
Oh, yeah.
as a sign of deeper interest.
Sure.
But you weren't directly comparing interest and curiosity there.
Right. And Renninger later on built on that idea, showing how learners, when they're really into something, start asking and answering their own questions out of curiosity.
Right. It's like the interest fuels the curiosity.
Exactly.
And there are more examples, like von Stuhm and his colleagues. They found that intellectual curiosity is a super strong predictor of how well you do in school. But they didn't really dive into interest specifically. And actually, their work was based on a tool that did measure interest. It's just they didn't focus on it in their research.
Huh. That's funny how that works out sometimes.
It is, and then you've got Kidd and Hayden, who did this awesome in-depth look at curiosity,
Yeah.
but they didn't really connect it to all the research on interest.
Okay.
They even suggested that maybe we shouldn't get too hung up on defining curiosity at all, but rather focus on the core motivations behind seeking information and how that plays out in the brain.
Interesting.
And Moriyama and his team, they echoed that, saying that maybe the distinction's too simple, maybe we should look at the cognitive processes underneath instead.
Okay, so a lot of back and forth there.
For sure. But then the paper turns to the researchers who are really adamant that interest and curiosity are separate things.
Okay.
And a lot of this seems to stem from trying to figure out how we learn best.
Makes sense.
Fink and Krapp, they both made the point that the content itself is central to interest, whereas in curiosity studies, the content often takes the back seat.
Okay, so that's a key distinction for our listeners. Interest is almost always about something specific.
Right. A subject, a skill, a topic.
Yeah, whereas curiosity is more like a general urge to fill a gap in your knowledge.
Exactly. Whether or not you even cared about that information before. And Markey and Lowenstein, along with Renninger and Heedy, they laid out some really clear differences.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty here. What are the key distinctions?
Okay, so Markey and Lowenstein, they say curiosity comes from wanting to close a specific knowledge gap. You come across something you don't know and you got to find out. Interest, though, is this feeling of wanting to learn more about something in general.
Okay.
So that leads to different ways of looking for information. Curiosity makes you look for a specific answer, right?
Yeah.
While interest leads to, a wider exploration.
Okay.
They also point out that the feelings are different. Curiosity can involve this, almost frustrating feeling, like deprivation, until you find the answer, and then you get this relief, this pleasure.
Like when you can't remember a name and it's just driving you crazy?
Exactly. But interest tends to come with more positive feelings consistently, like enjoyment, fascination.
Yeah, like being interested in a certain historical period. That's a pretty good feeling.
Right. And they give this great example. So someone interested in cooking, they might want to learn new recipes, experiment with ingredients, learn about culinary history.
Right. Really dive deep.
But someone who's curious about cooking might just ask, what's the chemical reaction when you whisk egg whites?
Very specific. Narrow focus.
Exactly. And then Grossnickel adds another layer, saying there are 3 things that help us tell them apart.
Okay, lay it on me.
So the role of prior knowledge,
Okay.
the goals or outcomes we're after, and how stable or changeable they are.
Okay.
So with knowledge, you usually need some to get curious. You have to know enough to realize there's something you don't know.
Makes sense.
But interest can develop even if you know very little to start.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then with goals, curiosity is all about closing that gap, reducing uncertainty.
Right.
But interest wants increased attention, enjoyment, and a wider understanding.
Okay, so it's broader.
Yeah. And lastly, with stability, that general tendency to be curious, that might be more of a personality trait. But interest in a specific thing can change over time.
Yeah, for sure. Like how I used to be obsessed with dinosaurs as a kid. Not so much now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Shin and his colleagues, they looked specifically at situational interest, that initial, ooh, cool moment, and compared it to curiosity.
Okay.
They say situational interest is a general positive vibe. Liking something.
Yeah.
But curiosity is more short-lived and maybe even a bit negative because you're aware of that gap in your knowledge.
Right.
And that actually lines up with research on different types of emotions. It's interesting because even researchers who don't necessarily separate interest and curiosity sometimes admit that this idea of curiosity only being about filling a knowledge gap.
Yeah.
It might not fully explain why we get so engaged in more complex stuff like scientific research.
Right, because in research, one answer usually leads to, 10 more questions.
Exactly. And the paper talks about this study by McGillivray and his team.
Oh, yeah?
They looked at memory. And they found that the interest people felt after getting an answer, not their initial curiosity, was a better predictor of whether they'd remember the information later on.
Why?
And this was especially true for older adults.
Interesting. So it's not just about getting the answer to satisfy your curiosity. It's about what happens after, too.
Right. That lasting engagement and those positive feelings that come with interest seem to be way more important for remembering things long term.
So to sum up Heedy and Renninger's view, they say that while interest and curiosity have some overlap, they're fundamentally different states.
Totally. They have their own distinct processes going on.
And what triggers them is different, too. Interest often starts with a connection to the content itself.
Right.
But curiosity comes from bumping into something uncertain or unknown.
Yeah, like that knowledge gap thing. And
Yeah.
importantly, resolving that curiosity doesn't automatically turn into lasting interest.
Right. So they say that the growth of knowledge, how much you value the topic, and those positive feelings, those are the real signs of developing interest.
Exactly. And as interest grows, you pay more attention, you feel more positive about the topic, and you learn more deeply. Curiosity, on the other hand, is more about that quick urge to solve a specific mystery.
Okay, this leads perfectly into their four-phase model of interest development. They laid this out back in 2006. This model's been super influential, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's been cited thousands of times. Like, that's how you know it's had an impact.
For sure.
And there's a lot of research across tons of subjects that supports this model, from languages to STEM fields, you name it. It basically describes how interest in something can grow and change over time.
It's like a roadmap for interest. So let's break down these four phases. What's the first one?
So the first one is triggered situational interest. This is where it all begins.
Okay, what happens here?
Something grabs your attention.
Right, something sparks that initial interest.
Yeah, some kind of trigger. It could be something surprising or something that connects to your own life.
Right.
Or maybe there's just something about the information itself that's intriguing. The key is that this trigger helps you connect with the content. You don't need to be an expert at this point.
Yeah, just enough to get the gist.
Exactly. And your feelings at this point, they could be positive, negative, neutral, who knows?
Yeah.
But any negative feelings, they got to fade for interest to grow.
Okay.
And having those repeated chances to engage with the content, that's super important at this early stage.
Right, to build on that spark.
Exactly. So if you keep interacting with it, maybe with some help or encouragement, you move on to phase 2.
Okay, what's phase 2?
Maintained situational interest.
So you're still kind of in that initial phase, but you're sticking with it.
Right. You're actively re-engaging with it over time. But here's the thing. This usually needs some external support,
Okay,
either from other people or the way the learning environment is set up.
makes sense.
So this could mean understanding why what you're learning is useful, or focusing on the key ideas by reflecting on them,
Right.
or even rethinking your initial assumptions.
Okay.
And things like hands-on activities, educational software, games, group projects, those can all be really helpful in keeping you engaged.
Yeah, making it fun and interactive.
Exactly. And the important thing here is that your feelings about the content generally become more positive,
Yeah.
and you get a boost from encouragement and the satisfaction of learning new things.
So for our listeners, this is where that initial spark gets fanned into a flame.
Exactly. Through positive experiences and a sense of relevance.
Okay, on to phase 3.
Emerging individual interest.
So this sounds like things are getting more internal now.
You got it. This is where learners start seeking out information on their own. They might even start asking their own why questions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and the kind of support that helps here shifts a bit.
How so?
It's more about having deep conversations that challenge their understanding
Okay.
and giving them the time and space to explore their own questions.
So it's less about being spoon-fed information and more about guiding them to discover it themselves.
Exactly. Their positive feelings get even stronger, and encouragement helps them push through challenges. Their understanding grows, and they start to see the value of what they're learning.
So they're taking ownership of their learning at this point.
For sure. And finally, we reach phase 4.
The final stage. What's that one called?
Well-developed individual interest. This is where the real passion kicks in.
I love it.
At this point, it's all about that internal drive.
They're self-directed.
Totally. They're asking their own questions, pursuing their own lines of inquiry, expanding their knowledge, and they can handle challenges. They become more strategic, aware of different viewpoints, resourceful in finding information.
Wow, so they're basically experts at this point.
Pretty much. And this leads to long-term engagement, often with creative or constructive activities related to the topic. And when they re-engage with the content, they get strong, positive feelings. Their knowledge and appreciation keep growing, sometimes even spilling over into related areas.
Cool.
And often, people at this stage are recognized by others for their deep understanding and passion.
They become the go-to person for that subject.
Exactly.
It's important to remember that this isn't always a linear progression, right?
Oh, absolutely. You're not just automatically going to go through these phases.
Right.
Interest can fade. It can disappear if the learning environment isn't right or if those connections to the content aren't engaging or challenging enough.
Right. It has to stay stimulating.
For sure. And the paper also mentions competing interests, which can pull us away.
Yeah, life happens.
It does. And the support we need can change as we get older, and everyone's experiences are different, so interest develops in a very personal way.
Right. It's not one size fits all.
Nope. The researchers suggest that for research, it can be helpful to think of interest as either less developed or more developed, depending on what you're studying.
Okay.
So the first two phases would be less developed, the last two more developed.
Got it.
And less developed interest needs that external support to connect with the content, while more developed interest drives those self-initiated explorations.
Okay, that makes sense. And how does all this relate to education?
So understanding these different phases of interest is huge for how we approached learning and teaching. Both interest and curiosity can grab our attention initially.
Right.
But how deep we go really depends on how developed our interest is in that topic.
Okay, so what if I'm curious about something, but I have no real interest in it? Like, I see a weird headline and I want to know what it's about, but I don't really care about the topic itself.
Yeah, so the paper gives a couple of possibilities for you there. Once that curiosity is satisfied, you might just move on.
Like, okay, that was weird, and then forget about it.
Exactly. Or that moment of curiosity could actually spark a situational interest.
Okay.
And if that's nurtured, it could start developing through those four phases.
So curiosity could be a gateway to interest.
It could be. But what if you're already interested in something and then you get hit with a related question or a moment of curiosity?
Yeah, what happens then?
Then that curiosity can make you even more engaged.
It deepens the interest.
Exactly. And as your interest grows, those curiosity questions can even start coming from within you.
That's cool.
It is. The paper briefly touches on trait curiosity, that general tendency some people have to be curious,
Right.
and how that might affect interest development. But they say we need more research on that.
Okay.
Their focus here is on curiosity as a state, that urge to close a specific knowledge gap,
Okay.
not as a fixed personality trait.
So it's about how you're feeling in that moment.
Right. And they really want to make it clear that separating interest and curiosity, it's not just semantics.
Right, not just using different words for the same thing.
Exactly. Psychologically, they're really different.
So how do they explain that difference?
Well, interest is like an anchor for sustained involvement, you know? It's that ongoing desire to learn more and more over time.
Yeah, it keeps you coming back.
Right. But curiosity, it usually has a clear endpoint. You get the answer to your question and poof, the drive disappears.
Makes sense.
They use this cool analogy with a mystery novel versus an essay.
Okay, I like analogies.
With the mystery, your curiosity is all about finding out who did it. But once you know, the book might lose its appeal.
True.
But with an essay on a topic you're interested in, you're going to keep reading to get a deeper understanding, to see different perspectives.
Yeah, because you're invested in the topic itself.
Exactly. So just trying to spark curiosity probably won't lead to that deep, long-term engagement we want in education. You really need to cultivate interest.
To build that desire to keep coming back for more.
Absolutely. But the paper also says that curiosity can be a great starting point. It can light that initial fire.
Okay.
They talk about how parents can play a big role early on by giving kids experiences that make them wonder and be curious.
Right, setting the stage for future interests.
Yeah. And as kids go through school, educators take on that role of supporting the development of those lasting interests.
Makes sense. It's like that classic baking soda and vinegar volcano experiment. Everyone loves seeing the eruption.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool.
But once it's over, the curiosity is gone.
Right.
To turn that into deeper learning, you need follow-up activities and an interest in chemistry or volcanoes.
Totally. And there's this other example with tourists seeing the Northern Lights.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's amazing, right? All that curiosity and wonder. But a day later, it's just a memory.
Unless you're really into physics or astronomy.
Exactly. Without that existing interest, that quick curiosity fizzles out.
So how interested someone is really affects how ready they are to engage with the content again and what kind of support they need to stay engaged.
Totally. People with less developed interest need more external support, more reasons to stick with it. But those with stronger interest are more likely to ask their own questions and seek answers on their own.
They're driving the learning themselves.
Exactly. And the researchers make a good point that most brain research and curiosity has focused on pretty simple tasks, like trivia questions. But more complex tasks, they offer way more opportunities for connecting across different levels of interest.
That makes sense.
And ultimately, how we search for information when we're just curious is different from how we explore when we have a developing interest, especially when things get tough.
Yeah, when we hit roadblocks.
Right. And this has big implications for educators. Promoting interest is different from promoting curiosity.
Right. Different approaches are needed.
Exactly. And supporting interest development is crucial for getting people engaged in complex topics and opening doors for future learning.
For sure. And it seems like there's a lot of confusion right now about the difference between fostering interest and just sparking curiosity.
Definitely. And the paper emphasizes that just relying on novelty and uncertainty, that's not enough for real, meaningful engagement.
Okay, so what needs to happen? What are the next steps?
Well, the paper ends by talking about the neuroscientific research that still needs to be done to really understand the nuances of how our brains handle information when we're curious versus interested.
Right, we need to get into the nitty-gritty brain stuff.
Exactly. And Heedy and others have said that neuroscience can offer some amazing insights into what motivates us to learn. There's even been some early work suggesting we could use EEG to detect those moments of situational interest in a classroom.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It is. But the authors here say that brain scientists could really help us figure out the specific differences in how we search for and process information when we're driven by curiosity versus interest.
Okay.
And how those different types of information seeking might affect our memory and learning in different ways.
So we could really understand when to spark curiosity and when to nurture interest.
Exactly. They suggest 5 key areas for future research.
Okay, let's hear them. What's the first one?
Eye movements during information search.
Okay, so like where our eyes are focusing.
Yeah, eye tracking has been used forever to study visual attention. And studies show that we look longer at things that are unexpected or uncertain, which could be related to curiosity. And newer research has even suggested that eye movements can give us clues about what's going on in our minds.
Really?
Yeah, like whether we're curious or surprised. And quicker eye movements towards expectant answers seem to be linked to higher levels of curiosity.
Wow, so our eyes could reveal whether we're just mildly curious or really engrossed.
Exactly. So one big area for future research is to see if there are different patterns in our eye movements when we're looking for information because we're curious, compared to when we're exploring something we have a well-developed interest in.
That'd be fascinating to see. What's the second area?
The emotional responses to curiosity and interest.
Okay, so how those feelings actually play out in our brains.
Exactly. Early theories about curiosity suggested that it might feel kind of uncomfortable, like a heightened state of arousal that we want to resolve. And finding the answer gives us a reward.
Okay.
Some brain imaging studies support this. They show activity in areas of the brain related to conflict and arousal when curiosity is triggered, and then activity in reward areas when the curiosity is satisfied.
Makes sense.
But other research has found that reward-related areas are active even when we're just anticipating the answer to something we're curious about.
Interesting.
So those differences might depend on how uncertain we are about the answer.
Okay.
And interest-driven exploration, that's less likely to involve that initial discomfort.
Right, because it's a more positive feeling overall.
Exactly. So future research could use fMRI to compare brain activity during engaging activities that we're interested in versus those focused on solving a specific mystery.
Okay, that's a cool idea.
And they also suggest using new techniques like transdermal optical imaging.
What's that?
It's a way to measure subtle changes in facial blood flow from video recordings
Wow.
to gauge emotions. So you can see if the outward emotional reactions to interest and curiosity are different, and how uncertainty affects those reactions, and how they compare across different phases of interest development.
So a lot more to explore in the realm of emotions. What's the third research area?
It's looking at what actually causes curiosity and interest.
Like what's the underlying trigger?
Yeah. Studies using things like lotteries have suggested that curiosity can be sparked by uncertainty itself, even without the promise of a reward. This lines up with other brain imaging work showing that our brains respond to different levels of uncertainty.
Okay.
But with interest, research often points to the anticipation of gaining new knowledge as the driver. That we find it rewarding to learn things we value, not just to reduce uncertainty.
Right, because we're drawn to the content itself.
Exactly. So future research could explore these different underlying drivers for curiosity and the different stages of interest development.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It feels like curiosity comes from a lack of knowledge, but interest comes from a desire for knowledge.
Exactly. And the fourth area they propose is information prediction error.
Okay, that sounds complicated. What's that?
It builds on research on reward prediction error, which basically says our brains learn by comparing the rewards we expect to get with the rewards we actually get.
Okay.
And more recent work has applied this to information. They found that how well we remember trivia answers depends on how curious we were about the question and the information prediction error.
And what is that?
It's how much more satisfying the answer was than we thought it would be.
Oh, okay.
So the authors say future research could compare these information prediction errors in situations where we're driven by interest versus curiosity, especially when dealing with more complex information than just trivia.
Right, because with interest, the information itself might be more valuable to us.
Exactly. That value we place on information related to an existing interest could lead to different, maybe even bigger prediction errors.
So it's not just about wanting to know the answer. It's about how good it feels to find out and how that relates to whether you were just curious or truly interested.
Exactly. And the final area they highlight is incentive motivation.
Okay, break that down for me.
This looks at the different parts of reward: liking, wanting, and learning.
Okay.
And research says that wanting or incentive salience plays a big role in our immediate responses and boosts dopamine release. So the authors think incentive salience is involved in both curiosity and interest, but it might fade for curiosity once the question is answered unless there's an underlying interest supporting it.
Okay.
And a leading researcher in this area, Kent Burridge, he's suggested that there might even be a difference in the scope of this wanting.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it might be broader for curiosity and more focused on specific parts of the content for interest.
So maybe we're driven to learn anything new when we're curious, but with interest, we're looking for specific types of knowledge related to that interest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And future neuroscience studies could test these ideas across curiosity and the different phases of interest.
Awesome. This has been a lot to take in, but it's so fascinating. So to sum up, it sounds like interest is that sustained engagement, often with positive emotions, and it's focused on a specific area.
Yeah, you got it.
And curiosity is more about that immediate need to fill a knowledge gap. It can involve some uncertainty or even frustration, and it's usually about answering one specific question.
Exactly. And understanding these differences is super important for how we approach learning, both for ourselves and in education.
Yeah, and it's exciting to think about how future brain research can clarify these concepts even more, especially when we consider complex learning and how interest grows over time.
For sure. It could change how we design learning experiences and how we understand our own motivations.
And maybe even clear up the confusion around how we talk about and try to promote interest and curiosity in education and beyond.
Absolutely.
So for our listeners out there, take a moment to think about this. Think about a time you were super curious about something. Maybe a headline you saw, or a random fact you wanted to check. Now compare that to a time when you got really into a subject, something you kept coming back to, something you wanted to learn more and more about. How was your motivation different in those two situations? What does that tell you about the difference between curiosity and interest that we've explored today? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.